and no matter how much coercion I've applied to coerce them to continue on a regular basis, you know, you just can't drag people in here, and I don't certainly understand it. You know, if people were spending the same amount on a material purchase that they spend on their taxes, if they were buying a car, they would give it some attention. You know, I just don't understand it. But moving on. With the situation with Neil, there's one thing that concerns me. You know, I'm not Neil's attorney or representative, and I don't want to inject myself in any way in that. There is one thing with the situation that troubles me. If this could happen to Margot George, a known, respected, and perhaps even loved member of the community, where a municipal service was interrupted, and it's now well over 2 weeks, and they still don't have water service there. It could happen to anyone. And I do not understand, and perhaps it would not be prudent for the board to even answer me tonight, but I don't understand why the village did not immediately intercede and demand that the adjacent property owner restore the service that had been illegally terminated. It wasn't as though he picked up the phone and called Mike Nuzlees and said, I have a problem, come down here, something needs to be done. Took this upon himself to interrupt a water line that was going across his property. A line that was not his line, that was a line that had been installed by the village, from what I understand. Whether it had been... the fact is that he interrupted a service, and the building inspector did nothing to go down there and demand that the service be restored, and I find that very troubling.
If I can, Joe, just briefly, I mean, we have to, and the village board relies upon me, to look at what the law is. And, you know, I took a look at the law because I met with the building inspector, met with the DPW supervisor, met with the mayor, took a look at New York State Village Law, and Section 11-1112 is very clear that anything outside the main is the responsibility of the property owner. Now, I frequently said to my wife that I want a job in my next life to be able to tell people what they want to hear. Okay? Because it's not my job in this life. And that's what the law says. And what happened a long time ago, I don't know. I can only comment on what the law is now. And I have to be concerned when I advise my client about what precedential effect whatever we do today will have tomorrow. Right. And that's where that comes from. And it can be extraordinarily difficult sometimes because, you know, every fiber of your body may ring out and say, this is the right thing to do, but yet I may have to advise my client that notwithstanding that that's the right thing to do, I have to advise you not to do that. Not part of the job I like. I'd rather go around and make everybody happy and give advice to my client about how you can make people happy, but that's not my job.
Clearly, this is not the simple, straightforward situation that you would hope it would be, with a straight line from the main to the building. It's alleged that this is a situation that was created by the village, and that the thing that troubles me there is that that the adjacent property owner interrupted a municipal service, and that there was no move to direct him to restore the service that he had illegally interrupted, either by the police or the building department.
Well, they all called me. They all called me because that's what they should do, because that's my job. Do, yeah. And I would prefer that the answer would have been different. Frankly, it would have made my life a lot easier if the answer was different. I just go by what's in the law book. And the law book on this issue was clear. And that's the advice that I had to give the chief, the building inspector, the superintendent of public works, and the board. And I think that tonight, I think we've reached a a compromise about, you know, the village is doing what's fair, and the property owner, you're gonna have to relay that, but hopefully the property owner understands that, and we can solve the situation and not have to go through this, obviously, really more than unfortunate circumstance again.
As I said, it's not the simple situation that most of these situations are. It's complicated.
But on top of that as well, Joel, if I may, though I agree with you that Margot is a beloved and cherished member of the community, your statement that if it can happen to her, the bottom line is it's not a question of who it happens to. It's what we legally have to deal with here. And I think that what we've come up with in saying that we would cooperate with the tap in the main and doing the work in the street, but that we cannot go onto private property, is the most amenable.
Absolutely. I was not questioning that, and I want to reiterate, I wasn't trying to object myself. You know, I'm not an attorney, and I'm certainly not representing any of the parties here. My concern was the nature of the situation.
Well, the bottom line is I love Margot too, but it's really not a question of who has the problem, it's how you deal with the problem, how you can deal with the problem.
Well, again, the base of my concern is that here, what is it, 16, 17 days after the fact, you have a business that's sitting there with the threat of going out of business, and a health situation where you've got somebody living there without water. So, you know, I'll just let it go at that. With regard to the budget, having said what I did about funds for the video, I would like to urge the board again this year to, there are a number of things which I've got on my list for the budget, but one of the things I'd like to throw out now is please give some consideration again to a call direction and voicemail system for the village hall. It is something that would certainly increase efficiency and cut back on labor costs, most likely, as well as providing a greater level of service in terms of being able, for residents to be able to communicate with their board members. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more citizens' comments? Yes.
Maybe I'll just convey this to her now in front of you, and if I'm in error, correct me. Yeah? Okay, so the village is the same offer that Malcolm and I had spoken about on the phone, that the village is going to connect the water line to the main under the street, run it to the curb, and then from the curb to the building is our responsibility. And the village is going to do the excavation themselves, Department of Public Works, right?
In the street.
In the street.
Correct.
And that all fees are waived.
I don't know that there are any fees.
Yeah, I don't know what hookup fees, yeah.
Well, it would be a hookup fee. I mean, there's already, yeah, I mean, it would be.
Yeah, hookup fees waived, yes.
Yeah, fine, yep.
And we're going to connect the original water line that was hooked up to the building. And when Mike is there, we're going to query that water meter that's underneath the sidewalk, which I think is probably, maybe the source of, at one time there was a water pressure issue. So
I thought that had been destroyed.
The water meter is under the sidewalk, the top of it's capped off, but it's there. So in order to actually, if that, I don't know if it's rusted up inside or not, or what's going on with it, but if that's an issue, then what was the expression? Just
deal with it at the time.
Common sense?
Yeah, common sense. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the villages, and the attorneys have corresponded back and forth. David Donovan responded to Ben Ospra's fax.
Yeah.
And the village board agreed tonight that they're willing to do that. The village attorney recommended it to the village board, and the village board agrees.
Okay. And was it ever explained why this water line was suddenly cut off and why it cannot be turned back on? Is there any reason, rather than having to go through I had a new poured cement floor put in that downstairs, and I have new hardwood floors on that main floor. that means they're going to have to tear up the cement floor, tear up the hardwood floors. And I just wanted to know if I have a right of way, which I do, after being there for 25 years, why it cannot be reconnected with the understanding